Good morning. My name is Beth Andes, and it is my delight to welcome you all here on this beautiful morning. And you're in for a great one. The music today, if I do say so myself, is really great. So, first of all, just a few items of housekeeping. The restrooms are down the hall and right behind this wall. There's exits in case of emergency on the stage on both sides as well as in the back. And I do want to very much welcome our people who are attending online and live streaming this. So one of my favorite parts comes now, which I get to greet any visitors who are here or any guests who feel brave enough to stand up and introduce yourself. Will you tell us your name and where you're from? Hello.
Bloomington, Indiana, and as a military there, but I'm living here now as a week ago.
Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Mary Jo Hackett, Harrisonville, Missouri. I went to GA here in Kansas City, and we look at
Welcome. Yes.
My name is Mary. I am from Bedford. I went to Unitarian Church there, and I've been looking for a community.
Well, welcome. This gentleman over here.
My name is Dave Fitch. I'm from Bloomington, Illinois, and a member of the church there.
Welcome.
Living here for weekends.
Very great. Yes, sir.
My name is Scott, and I have the privilege of representing Roseburg Center today. I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome to you both.
Beth,
Yes.
I'd like to introduce Davida J. Wesley Bond, who's here today singing with the choir. And she's no guest to us, but we're happy she's here today.
Good morning, and welcome once more to this hour of reflection and renewal here in this covenant community of memory and promise. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that struggle to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and more love. Here together, let us create a brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. We have the right to start somewhere where we are and continue to grow. That is why we need this brave space. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. And so we need this brave space. We are called to come with our doubts, our mistakes, our reluctance. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish for it to be. But it will be our brave space together. And we will work side by side to sustain it and to sustain each other. In token of that promise to one another and to the world, we kindle once again the living flame of this chalice, symbol of our heritage, of faith, of freedom, reason, and service to others. May it warm our hearts, illuminate our paths, and stand as a beacon to all seekers of meaning and purpose and the dignity of the human spirit.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sierra, and I light this chalice for inherent worth and dignity of every person.
Thank you, Sierra. Would you now rise in body or spirit, and let us speak once again the words of our covenant with one another. Together we affirm goodwill is the spirit of this church. Service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now our opening hymn is around, but we're going to make this really easy on you. The choir's going to do the hard part. All you have to do is just sing the whole thing 5 times through. Okay? That's all you have to do.
I know my soul will firmly
Now I invite us to join in a moment of connection. And as most of you know, this means you need to find someone to talk to, and you get extra points if it's not the person you came in with, and you get double extra points if it's a person under 16. So look around and find somebody you can share with. And then don't start yet. Let me give you the question. They're going for it no matter what I say, right? All right. Now that you've said good morning, can I give you the question I want you to talk about? Okay. I'm really glad that we're all excited to be back together again after the summer. This is good. But here's the question, because you're gonna want to think about this later on. If you could be any superhero character, or if you could have a superpower, who would that character be, or what would that superpower be, and what would you do with it? All right, now go. Started some conversations you might like to continue after the service is over, but for right now we're going to let our young people go to their classes with song. I'm going to invite you to come forward and talk to us.
Good morning.
Hang on one second. You're going to want this.
Thank you.
There you go.
Good morning. Well, I have the privilege and honor of working for Rosebrook Center, which I've been there next month for 11 years. It was a second career of mine. And it all transpired because I was a volunteer there 12 years ago and fell in love with the work. And my job when I was a volunteer was to go out on the nights and weekends and see women and teenagers in the hospital and some men that disclosed that they were unsafe at home. So we would meet with them and provide services for them. It's called our Bridge program, and we're in about 13 hospitals and clinics here in Kansas City, and serve several thousand people through that program alone. And one night I met with a woman in Research Medical, and it oftentimes is a challenge to get shelter placement for individuals who are looking for a safe place, but we were able to place her in Rosebrook Center The following week, I went to Rosebrooks for a volunteer meeting. And as I was walking across the parking lot, I hear a woman say, "Hey, you're that man that saved my life." And I guess speaking of superhero powers, it was in that moment that I decided to leave Sprint and come work for Rosebrooks full time. It truly was a life-changing moment to be able to really feel the impact of what that woman was saying to me. Rosebrooks, those stories are all over the place, and what you're able to give today absolutely will save a life. We serve about 14,000 individuals every single year, and that's obviously not through just shelter. We have 100 beds at shelter, and we have an on-site pet shelter as well, which people absolutely love. So at Rosebrooks, we don't separate pets from their loving owners. They're able to come with them to shelter. And that's been around for about 6 years now. So it's really changed the soundtrack of what it sounds like at Rosebrooks. But it's a mighty place. And if you just think about even giving $10, I just want you to understand the impact of that. Because a lot of times when you hear those numbers and when you hear the number of people that we serve, I just want you to know that $10 will feed 3 individuals in shelter. So it's a huge impact. And the fact that they serve 100 meals 3 times a day, every single day, that they prepare and serve our families, it's an impact that you're making for sure. And it's a place of healing. It's absolutely a place of bravery. To see those families start completely over again. And it's a privilege that we're able to provide them the tools that they need. It's not just safety, it's employment advocacy, advocates. It's helping them with job placement. It's helping them with getting kids in new schools because it's not safe for them to be in school in their current school. And then it's going out in the community and being able to impact and meet people exactly where they're at, and letting them know that they are absolutely not alone. It's a life-changing place, and I thank you for being a part of that life change. Thank you.
You're gonna have to clap on the 2 and 4 here. I'm climbing higher mountain, trying to get home. I'm climbing higher mountain, trying to get home. Yes, I'm climbing higher mountain. Yes, I'm climbing every day. Trying to get home. Well, my road's been a little rocky on my way home. You know my road's been a little rocky on my way home. Well, my road's been a little rocky going up the mountain. You know my road's been a little rocky on my way home. Go now, come on. Yeah. All right, keep it going now. I'm going up the rough side of the mountain on the way home. I'm going up the rough side of the mountain on my way home. I'm going up the rough side of the mountain.
All right, will you join me in the dedication of the offering? Together, we dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society.
Many people left the church, and some have legitimate reasons. A lot left because they could not stand what I am talking about to you this morning. Something wonderful and beautiful happened in the midst of it all. A woman, 62 years old, came to my office. She was crying, and I went over and I held her in my arms. She said, "I've got to leave the church." I asked, "Why?" She said, "I'm just not comfortable anymore. It was all right before, with ministers who were white. There were a few blacks, but now there are just too many joining the church. I'm not comfortable anymore. I feel really ashamed of myself." She said, "I'm liberal, and I never thought that I could have racist feelings, but I do." I said, "Well, you could try to change." She said, "No, I'm too old for that. I can't change. When I go to church, I just want to be comfortable. But I'll send you money every now and then to help the church out." And she left. I see her from time to time. She's out in one of our suburban churches. I see her through the corner of my eye. And if she sees me before I see her, she vanishes quickly. And I let her. But if I see her first, she smiles and we hug. She asks me how things are, and we quickly part. But I appreciate her honesty.
I remember a 20-something African-American woman who took my screenwriting class once. She was incredibly frustrated because she wanted to write a historical fiction narrative with Black characters, but felt thwarted by the realities of racism in the past. There could be no cowboy hero, no Victorian romance, no antebellum South epic, or any other story with the cloud of slavery or colonialism to doom her character's fate. She couldn't come up with a single story idea that could have a happy ending, at least not one that took place in the last 500 years, up to, say, 1960. As for writing science fiction or creating a world in the future or coming up with a complete fantasy, she didn't know how she could integrate Black culture into the story. The parameters of race had completely chained her imagination.
there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one. We'll be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Ooh, imagine all people sharing all the world. I say I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. Come and join us. We'll be as one.
Has anyone ever told you you're imagining things? In a disapproving, dismissive tone of voice that says, stop doing that. It isn't real. It doesn't matter. You're wasting all our time here. Or maybe they said, you're making it up. It's all in your head. If so, I want to take this opportunity to apologize to the creative spirit in you. I think many of us have probably gotten that message at one time or another, perhaps especially when we were children, or at other times when we were trying to think in a really big way about the possibilities of our lives. The message that imagination is frivolous, that it is a distraction from the work we ought to be doing. In truth, it's not. Imagination is one of the most important resources we have for making decisions and solving problems. Imagination gives us access to possibilities beyond the options we already consciously know that we have to hand. It brings novelty into the equation. Even the most implausible forms of pretending can have a liberating effect on how we see the world. This is why superheroes, in one form or another, are always popular. Whether in ancient myths or modern movies, when you identify with a character who has abilities greater than your own, you expand the horizons of your thinking. The modern practice called cosplay, a contraction of costume and play, has its origin with two fans who dressed up for the first World Science Fiction Convention held in New York in 1939 in costumes intended to represent the clothing of the future. The idea struck a powerful chord, and by the following year, there were both formal and informal costume events at the convention, and fans who dressed to represent identifiable characters from popular science fiction stories. The practice spread quickly, particularly to Japan and the United Kingdom, and cosplay, while still an important feature of sci-fi conventions and similar comic cons, has also taken on a life and culture of its own, sort of like year-round Halloween for grown-ups. Cosplay is a form of empowerment for all children and adults, says Stanford Carpenter, founder and president of the Institute for Comics Studies, who says that he used to be dismissive of cosplay. But after attending dozens of Comic-Cons, Carpenter, who is Black, changed his mind. It's about empowerment. He says it's about the possibility of what you can be or what you can do. And when you see people in underrepresented groups, it takes on the empowerment fantasy of not just, say, being Superman, but also the dimension of stepping out of the much more narrow roles that we are assigned. But this idea of this superhero has an added dimension because it inherently pushes against many of the stereotypes that are thrust upon us. It is this opportunity to push the boundaries of what you can be. And in so doing, you're imagining a whole new world of possibilities for yourself that can extend beyond the cosplay experience, says Carpenter. It's like stepping to the top of the mountaintop where everything looks small. It's not that you stay on top of the mountaintop forever, but when you come down, you're not the same. You have a new perspective. A choice that you don't know is a choice that you don't have. The imagination is the greatest resource that humans have. Cosplay builds on that. Cosplay puts imagination and desire into action in a way that allows people to look at things differently. This kind of imagination is the antidote to the paralysis experienced by a Tasha Womack student who could not conceive of a story about people of color having a happy ending at any point in the history of the past. The larger question before all of us, it seems to me, is this: can we conceive of a story about any people, given the human condition, with a happy ending that does not depend upon coming out on the dominant side of an oppressive culture? I invite you to sit with that question for a little while before you answer it too quickly. Seems to me this is where it becomes a religious question,
John Lennon's invitation to picture a world with no religion, too, notwithstanding. For it is precisely our collective imagination that must inform whatever faith we have, that must offer a potential happy ending or endings for the human journey, both individually and communally. One conventional version of this, of course, is that no matter what happens in this life, we go to heaven and experience eternal bliss after we die. That's a sort of happy ending, though objectively unverifiable. But it has the advantage shared by all forms of fantasy, which is that we can use imagination to shape exactly what we would like for it to be. Is it an endless harp concert in God's honor? Ever-flowing rivers in the desert attended by 72 virgins? Your own planet, complete with people to worship you? The total absence of all desire. Unless you want to accept Voltaire's tongue-in-cheek suggestion that our current reality is actually the best of all possible worlds, you have to put your imagination to work, picturing what heaven, if it existed, would be like. Most folks obey the impulse to begin this process by imagining heaven as a place that doesn't have all the things that they don't like about the way things are right now. No more death, or a mourning, or a crying, or pain, says the book of Revelation. No loss, no frustration, nothing to make anybody uncomfortable. No change, because if everything is perfect, to change would be for something to become worse, and then it wouldn't be heaven anymore. Unchanging comfort. That's what you get to when you try to eliminate all that is disturbing and painful about our experience here and now. No effort or courage required, no problems to solve, no stress or failure, no anxiety or suspense. I don't know about you, but at this point in the imaginative process, I start to get twitchy and my alarm bells go off. Not just because I don't believe it, which I don't, but more because even if I thought it was possible, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't want it. Endless comfort, unchallenged and unchanging, doesn't actually sound that appealing the more I think about it. I don't want it after I die, and I don't want it here and now either. Some level of comfort, yes, certainly. Some relief from stress, some assurance of being cared for and to some extent safe, and that my endeavors and hopes have some measurable odds of success. Without these, life is a misery, to be sure. And in the world as we know it, too many people live too much of their lives in exactly that kind of misery, too overwhelmed to even imagine what a happy ending for their story might be. While others wrap themselves in ever more opulent cocoons of power and consumption and entitlement, seeking that changeless, impervious comfort that they imagine can be achieved by insulating themselves from the winds of change, from the mighty rivers of justice, and from the icy hand of death. I take this moment of crisis in our culture, this hashtag #MeToo corrupt privilege rising fascism moment, to witness that it doesn't work,
Endless, changeless comfort is not just unattractive, it's a dangerous vision. In fact, it's the opposite of what our humanity is designed for. We are the product of struggle and change as evolution has unfolded. And those forces have shaped us to meet, struggle, and change effectively. I think it is where we are at our best, where our big brains and our capacity for creativity and perseverance and cooperation are called upon. It is when we are confronted with a challenge that no one individual can overcome alone, and we have to work together to achieve the good that we can imagine. That's when we really shine as a species. And I suspect, too, that it is there that we are really happiest. The happy ending is really no ending. It's a going on to the next challenge that might be overcome if we have the resolve, if we take it on together. The happy ending is not to die lapped in luxury with more toys and gold-plated faucets than everyone else. It is to die looking back over the journey and seeing how far we've come, remembering the companions that saved our butts sometimes and the ones we saved, laughing at how ridiculous we were sometimes, and seeing that those who come after will have resources that we created for them, and being glad that they see further than we did and envision greater possibilities. So here's the thing. The covenant community of memory and promise, the church, lives and dies by its vision, by its imagination. If the only work we are doing together is about making each other comfortable, then our sense of purpose becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, until ultimately it fits neatly into the thimble of utter self-concern and is of no significance to the rest of the world. At that point, there's no need for changes, because no challenge is able to disturb the perfect balance of shared comfort. That is not a happy ending for the church or for those in it. Like Reverend Eaton's startlingly honest parishioner, if we prioritize comfort and reassurance and changelessness in our congregational life, we will walk away from the very efforts and opportunities that might actually save our souls and perhaps help change the world. It might be helpful to think for a moment about the connotations of comfort and comfortable. While they clearly are connected, they also have slightly different valences. It is entirely reasonable to seek comfort when we are in distress. It is part of the nature of religious community to be a source of comfort in the sense of solace and care. In this sense, comfort is about alleviating affliction or responding to trauma in a particular temporary moment. To be comfortable, on the other hand, seems like an aspiration to a state of not being bothered in an ongoing way, to be protected from the effects of adversity in the first place, rather than being nurtured in the face of it. Church may exist to comfort us as we confront the follies of humanity and the finitude of life. But its purpose, when properly understood, is not to make us comfortable. It has to be something better than that. What is it, then, that we can imagine church is supposed to do? What is it that would be more satisfying than being made comfortable? I can think of 3 things, all of them relevant to the cultural moment in which we find ourselves. The first thing that is more satisfying than comfort is justice. It is worth going out of our way to see that people are treated fairly and with greater human dignity. Standing up to abusive power, even if that stand is not immediately victorious, fills a deeper craving than just being able to relax and take it easy. Until you have felt it, it's hard to describe. But once you know what it feels like, it calls you again and again. You can discover it standing up to a bully on the playground, or marching for racial justice, or marriage equality, or women's rights. Some people find it in a jail cell, or registering voters, or writing letters to the editor, or speaking up at city council meetings, helping someone to leave an abusive relationship, or bringing food and supplies to the water protectors at Standing Rock, or calling out old sexual assaults. Anything that helps to tip the scales toward equity and away from privilege holds a satisfaction that transcends convenience. Something deep within us celebrates that rebalancing of power, almost as if the calibration of justice was part of our assignment to begin with. Bringing about fairness is more satisfying than being comfortable. The second thing is creativity. I mean this not just in terms of art or literature, but also science and practical technical invention. I mean all the forms of human endeavor that constantly invite us to explore and imagine, whether that is teaching or cooking or gardening or building a boat in the basement. Bringing into the world something that never existed before, whether that is a painting or a song or an equation or a gadget or a quilt, can require great amounts of time and effort and frustration. But even if the attempt at creation doesn't turn out just exactly as it was originally envisioned, still those hours of labor in the service of a creative vision will have more meaning and satisfaction than any amount of effortless leisure. Of course, both these enterprises, justice and creativity, are even more satisfying when we undertake them together with others. So the third thing that is more satisfying than comfort is community. Many of us go looking for community in quest of its comforts, but I want to suggest that that is misguided. The connections that truly satisfy are the ones we grow into, that challenge us to keep growing and changing, because that is how we together are going to become the kind of people we want to be. The French author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry wrote that life has taught us that love does not consist in gazing at each other, but in looking outward together in the same direction. It is by joining together in a project that each of us is indispensable for that we learn to see and know each other, and weave the connections that truly hold us and give real comfort in times of hardship. Creating a little island of comfortableness for each other is one of the least helpful projects to work on together. It is too small to call forth our true humanity and the full power of our capacity for cooperation and ingenuity. Only imagination has the power to do this. to offer a vision of who we might be to each other so powerful that we stop asking for comfortableness and reach for connection and creativity and justice together instead. Only imagination can paint a picture of what is possible that carries us on to the other side of change instead of clinging reactively to the past. Mia Coleman, a die-hard science fiction fan who travels the country to attend sci-fi conventions, says that this form of imagination is the perfect place for people who find it hard to fit in. I love science fiction. It saves people's lives, she says. If you feel weird, there's a big place that will embrace you. Instead of feeling weird and isolated, it brings people together. It brings people together. There is comfort found in that coming together, I am sure. But it happens in the service of exploring the power of imagination to expand and change lives. I believe that the church can be like that, a place where together we learn to imagine how the world might be if justice prevailed more fully, if we brought the true impact of our creativity to bear on the challenges we face, if being connected was more important than being comfortable. It would be a place where we confront discomfort and don't let ourselves off the hook, where we are always asking, what's next, as we follow the vision of equity and compassion for all people. It would be a big place that embraces those who feel weird and isolated, bringing us together in the service of imagination to expand and change lives. We would comfort one another in the crisis moments and the desperate times, because that is what people who are deeply connected do. And we would rise together into the winds of change, supporting one another and holding ourselves accountable to the vision that we share. We would be occupied not in gazing at each other, but in looking outward in the same directions. It would break our hearts sometimes, I suppose. It would call forth our larger humanity. It would make us uncomfortable and determined. It would fill us not with ease, but with more abundant life. Imagine that. Felix Adler, one of the founders of American ethical culture, expressed his vision of what the city of light might look like in terms of at the turn of the second 20th century humanist movement in this closing hymn. Let's rise and sing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fires of commitment. For all these we carry in our minds and hearts until we are together again. Beloved friends, I come to you starved for all you have to give, a good instrument for all you have to tell me, for all I have to tell you. We talk of first things and last things, listen to music together. No one comes to this house who is not changed. There is no one here I meet who does not change me. So be it.